Hello and welcome to the first book review of the year. Today we're obviously reviewing the books I read in December, and Jeff has decided to come and say hello to us for a little bit, but who knows how long he'll stay with me for. Fortunately, you're going to only see little white patches of him because he's sat on me, and we have a new setup for this because I got a new tripod for Christmas. Yeah. So we're not talking about that though today, are we? We're talking about books. So we'll get on with it and start with the book review. So the first book I read in December was The Country Escape by Fiona Walker. This, as you can see, is a rather chunky book. So I made sure I read this one while I was still at work, so that I was on the bus still, because once I'm not at work and not on a bus, I don't read quite as much. Not because I don't want to, I just don't make the time to, I guess. Anyway, so this book is unnecessarily long, to be honest. It's trying to be like a saga, but it really doesn't need to for the story that it's giving. The main character is a woman called Kat, but the way that she's described in the book is never ever how I imagined her in my own head. So every time that they were like, oh, she's got red hair, I'm like, oh, does she? Because that is not how I envisioned her. She is not a red-haired person, in my opinion, for this story in this novel, but is how she's written. And to be quite honest, I neither loved it nor hated it. I didn't really have an opinion on it. It was enjoyable in patches, frustrating in patches, and there were occasions where I'm like, really? Why? This book is never ending. Sorry, Jeff is really distracting me. I'm not used to doing this with a dog on my lap. So yeah, I just don't really have an opinion on it. It was fine, I guess is how I would say it, but unnecessarily long. And it's like one of those films that you think have ended and then there's about 6 more endings. Well, that's what this book has. It has multiple endings. You think, oh, it must be ended now. But you know it isn't, because you've still got about 300 pages left. And there's an awful lot of horses in it. There's a lot about horses. I guess it's called Country Escape, so that's kind of what you'd imagine. But yeah, a lot of horses. So, Country Escape, Fiona Walker, fine, unnecessarily long. It's my resounding opinion of it. So the second book I read, and this has been on my to read pile for a number of years, is The Bitch Goddess Notebook by Martha O'Connor. And I never really thought I was much of a prude, but this has an awful lot of sex in it. I mean, we're getting up to 50 Shades here, maybe not that kind, but the amount of times it's described in here is coming up to 50 Shades of Grey sort of thing. And the 3 girls that it's followed have some serious issues that you would have thought someone in some sort of authoritative figure would have sorted it out, would have, you know, thought about it. I mean, one's got a druggie for a mum, one's got some drunkards for parents. They're all self-harming and binge drinking and mixing prescription tablets with alcohol and nearly killing themselves. And then, oh, there's a lot to this. These are some seriously screwed up girls. And what are you doing, Jeff? Come on, pick a place, pick a spot, pick a spot. Right. In the UK or whatever, you would have thought like social services or something would have got involved. So there's Jeff leaving. But no, they just were allowed to continue with their messed up lives. The book itself, you had to pay quite close attention because each chapter's from this perspective of one of the 3 girls, but then they're also not. They're either modern, like up to date, although this being up to date is 2003. That's probably how long I've had it on my to read pile for. Or it was based in the 80s, so you did have to pay quite close attention to A, who was telling the story, and B, what point in the timeline they were at for it. And I mean, my main feeling of this is I just feel sorry for them. They don't have nice lives. Again, like the other one, didn't really have an opinion on it other than, oh, I feel sorry for you. Someone should have really paid attention to you and sorted you out. So That's the Bitch Goddess notebook. You might be developing a theme here. The last book I read was The Lost Art of Keeping a Secret by Eva Rice. Again, a book that I know lots of people have probably read, and it's been around for ages, and I've had it on my bookshelf for ages, but never got around to reading. I nearly did a few times because I saw that it rated well on something, thought, oh, I've got that book, I should read it, and then never got around to it. So that was part of this year's aim, was to try and get through all the books that I hadn't read, and I nearly did. I was one short, so that'll be in January's book review, because I'm going to start the year with that one, so that one actually gets read too. Anyway, tangent over, Lost Art of Keeping a Secret. That's what we're talking about here. Based or set in the 1950s, I actually enjoyed this book. Unlike the other two, I had an opinion on this one. I enjoyed this book, although there were times where I got kind of confused because the way it's written is quite Enid Blyton, and it's all spiffing and oh gosh and all of that kind of stuff. So I kept thinking of the characters younger than they were, and then they'd go and do all sorts of things. I'd be like, aren't they like 12? And then remember that they're 18. So the style of writing and the age of the character didn't mesh well for me. It often made me confused, at least for the first however many pages, where I was getting used to the characters and stuff like that. So I did just have to keep reminding myself that the main characters were 18, and then the other ones were like 21 and things like that. They weren't young children. But once I got that in my head, it was much better. There was a particular line in this book, and it's very rare that I pick out particular lines, but the one line made me smile and giggle to myself quite a bit, because the main character in this, Penelope, she is, I guess what we say is doing her A-levels, but I don't know whether in 1950s they would have been A-levels. But anyway, she's studying English literature, and she says that it's put her off reading because she doesn't like to study books, basically. She likes to read books for the enjoyment and not to study them, and that was always my feeling on English literature. I did English language for that precise matter, is that any book that I've had to study I've not really enjoyed. So we did Lord of the Flies at school, which I didn't like because I had to study it. I'm sure if I read it not studying, I probably would have enjoyed it. The story I should enjoy. If I've had to look at them in that much detail and I've had to focus on them for that amount of time, it just takes away the enjoyment for me. So for her to say that in this novel, I was like, yes, I agree fully with you. There was a whole chapter or two about Christmas, and obviously I was reading this as Christmas Day was happening, and I read the Christmas section on about the 23rd of December, so it just added to my excitement and me looking forward to Christmas Day itself, because they were having such a nice Christmas and New Year's in the book. So that was an unexpected but nice way that I managed to connect the two, the book that I was reading and the season that I was in. Being the 1950s, obviously these kids are just coming out of rationing and the war and things like that, and they keep going on and on and on about some singer called Johnny Ray, who I have absolutely no idea who he is. I went on YouTube to have a listen and saw the picture and thought, actually no, I don't want to listen to that, that's not going to be my kind of thing. Which is weird because I like rock and roll music and stuff like that, but I think he's more of a crooner, probably. Oh, Jeff's going to bark. Jeff! Shush! So she kept going on about someone called Johnny Ray that she absolutely adored, and there were mentions of Elvis Presley because he was the new upcoming thing in America, and the brother to Penelope, the main character, is really into America and American pop music, so was basically wanting to be Elvis, but he hadn't made it over to the UK yet. So that was interesting as a sort of social history of pop music that I didn't know of, and I had no idea who Johnny Ray was, so learned something new there too. And the last thing that I liked about The Lost Art of Being a Secret, or Keeping Secrets, did I say being a secret before? Lost Art of Keeping Secrets, was their story of why parakeets came to London. So for those of you who aren't from London, aren't in London, don't know about it. London now has a huge population of wild parakeets, which obviously aren't a British bird. And there are many, no one really knows why they're in London. There are many stories as to why they came about and why they've bred so much. And this book gave a little nod to that, in that the only way I can explain this is to give you a bit of a synopsis of the book. So Penelope makes friends with another socialite whose cousin ropes Penelope in to make another woman jealous because he loves her and she's going to marry somebody else, basically. Now, Marina is the woman that he is in love with, and he gives her 2 parakeets as an anniversary gift, as an engagement present. And when they make her jealous, Harry and Penelope, she goes off on one and sets her parakeets loose, which is why there are millions of parakeets in London now, according to this book, which is a really long-winded way of explaining that, and I could have done that a lot better, so apologies. But I liked it, it made me smile, because it's something fitting, and, you know, it's a London thing, so it made the book seem more real, if that makes sense. But I like the sort of periodness of it. It's not too far away that it's all sword fights and jousting, but it's far enough away that there are differences that I've seen in TV programmes or in, you know, Listen to My Granny or whatever. So enjoyed this one a lot. I'm glad I finally got round to reading it. As I mentioned at the beginning, because I've been off work for 2 weeks, that's why I've only read 3 books, because I've not been on the bus, although 3 is pretty good going in my humble opinion, which brought my total for 2019 up to 47 books. Which is one less than I wanted, because there was one more of those books that have been on my shelf for a good 10-15 years that I've not read, but we didn't quite get to that one. So as I mentioned, I've started that one. We're going to read that one first in January. But if you want to see what books I've read in 2019 and you want to see how many we've got in common, I've made a list challenge like I do every year. And the 2019 reading list all the books that I've read in 2019 are on that list, and the link for that is down below in the little doofer. And so feel free to go and give that a gander. As always, I'd be interested to see what you thought of those books if you've read them, or if you can give me any recommendations of things that you think I'd like to read in 2020. All of that would be appreciated. So if you've liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed already, please go and do so now. Thank you. Bye.